When it comes to toughness, nobody commands more respect than Chuck Norris. Known for his legendary skills both on and off screen, he's seen it all, and he's ready to reveal his picks for Hollywood's fiercest fighters. In this video, Chuck Norris picks Hollywood's 8 most hardcore actors, the men who bring real grit, raw power, and unstoppable energy to every role. Get ready to meet the toughest legends who've earned their place in the ring and on the screen. When discussing the epitome of toughness in Hollywood, Bruce Lee's name invariably surfaces. Not just an actor, Lee was a martial arts pioneer whose influence transcended cinema. His philosophy and physical prowess set a new standard for what it meant to be a true martial artist. Lee's journey began with his deep-rooted training in Wing Chun, a traditional Chinese martial art. However, his insatiable curiosity led him to study various disciplines, culminating in the creation of Jeet Kune Do, a style emphasizing adaptability and efficiency. This innovative approach challenged conventional martial arts norms and showcased Lee's commitment to evolution and self-improvement. One of the most iconic moments in martial arts cinema is the climactic battle between Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris in The Way of the Dragon. Filmed in Rome's Colosseum, this scene wasn't just a display of physical combat, but a masterclass in choreography and storytelling. The fight's realism and intensity stem from the genuine respect and camaraderie between Lee and Norris, who had trained together extensively. Their mutual admiration translated into a performance that remains unparalleled in its authenticity and impact. Interestingly, this legendary fight scene was filmed under unconventional circumstances. Due to restrictions on filming inside the Colosseum, Lee and his crew had to obtain special permissions and work within tight constraints. Despite these challenges, the result was a cinematic masterpiece that continues to inspire martial artists and filmmakers alike. Beyond his on-screen achievements, Lee's influence permeated various aspects of popular culture. He broke racial barriers in Hollywood, becoming one of the first Asian actors to achieve international stardom. His charisma and philosophy resonated with audiences worldwide, fostering a deeper appreciation for martial arts and Eastern philosophies. Lee's dedication to his craft was evident in his rigorous training regimen and relentless pursuit of perfection. He believed in the integration of mind, body, and spirit, advocating for personal growth and self-expression through martial arts. This holistic approach not only enhanced his physical capabilities, but also enriched his performances, adding depth and authenticity to his roles. Tragically, Bruce Lee's life was cut short at the age of 32. However, his legacy endures, inspiring countless individuals to pursue martial arts and embrace the principles he championed. His impact on cinema, martial arts, and cultural perceptions remains profound, solidifying his status as a true icon of toughness and resilience. In the pantheon of Hollywood's toughest actors, Bruce Lee stands as a paragon of strength, innovation, and indomitable spirit. His contributions continue to shape the landscape of action cinema and martial arts, ensuring that his legend lives on for generations to come. When people talk about the toughest guys in Hollywood, most names come with a list of roles. With Steve McQueen, the resume is impressive, but it's his real-life grit that turned him into a legend. Before the cameras ever rolled, McQueen had already lived a life most action stars could only pretend to survive. Born into hardship during the Great Depression, McQueen bounced through reform schools, struggled with dyslexia, and faced abandonment from both parents. That kind of childhood either breaks a person or builds someone with the kind of edge that can't be faked. For McQueen, it was the latter. He was rough around the edges, anti-authority to the core, and had the scars to prove it. He wasn't just tough on screen, he lived it. Before acting, McQueen served in the U.S. Marine Corps. Not the easy ride either. He was demoted 7 times for insubordination. But when a fellow Marine's tank plunged into the Arctic waters during an exercise, it was McQueen who dove in and saved 5 men. That was the kind of toughness you don't learn in a fight scene. That was who he was, down to the bone. Once in Hollywood, Steve McQueen didn't play characters. He was a character. Whether it was a motorcycle-riding loner in The Great Escape or the bulletproof cop in Bullet, McQueen brought an unpolished, dangerous realism to every role. And get this, he performed most of his own stunts. That legendary jump in The Great Escape, McQueen did part of it himself. And even when his insurance refused to allow the biggest stunts, he found a workaround. He had his friend, a pro racer. wear his clothes and do the jump, just so he wouldn't lose control of the moment. And cars? No actor was more associated with speed. McQueen was a professional-level race car driver and motorcycle enthusiast. He competed in the 12 Hours of Sebring and even tried qualifying for Le Mans. He didn't just act like a speed demon. He was one. When filming Le Mans, he pushed for the racing scenes to be as raw and dangerous as the real thing. He risked everything for authenticity. McQueen didn't follow Hollywood's rules either. He was notoriously difficult on set, always clashing with directors, and refusing to do press unless it benefited his vision. But for someone like Chuck Norris to call him one of the toughest actors ever, it wasn't because of arrogance. It was because of that unbreakable will. Even when battling cancer later in life, McQueen sought out experimental treatments, traveling to Mexico to keep fighting when the odds were impossible. The man never surrendered, even at the end. Steve McQueen didn't need big muscles or a fake persona to come across as tough. It was in the way he walked, talked, and lived. He was a blueprint for every quiet, no-nonsense badass who came after him. If toughness is about authenticity, danger, and never flinching when it counts, then Steve McQueen didn't act tough. He defined it. Clint Eastwood didn't just play the tough guy. He was the tough guy with that squint, the deadpan delivery, and a presence that made entire rooms go silent. Eastwood didn't need a shout or flex. He didn't run toward danger with bravado. He walked straight into it, calm and unshaken. If Bruce Lee was precision and Steve McQueen was rebellion, Eastwood was the embodiment of cold, calculated power. Before Eastwood became a cinematic icon, he was drafted into the U.S. Army during the Korean War. But here's the part most people don't know. In 1951, Eastwood survived a plane crash when the military aircraft he was flying went down in the Pacific Ocean. With nothing but a life vest, he swam over 3 miles through shark-infested waters to safety. It was the kind of real-life story that would make a great Eastwood movie, only he lived it for real. Eastwood's rise to fame came with his role as a man with no name in Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns. These films redefined the Western genre and introduced a new kind of anti-hero, quiet, deadly, unpredictable. Eastwood barely spoke, but every word hit like a punch. In a fistful of dollars, for a few dollars more in the good, the bad, and the ugly, Eastwood didn't act tough. He radiated danger without breaking a sweat. And then came Dirty Harry. That snarl, that .44 Magnum, that line, "Do you feel lucky, punk?" cemented Eastwood's place as the king of cinematic intimidation. Harry Callahan wasn't a character. He was a force of nature. A cop who didn't follow the rules because he knew they were written for people who didn't know what real danger looked like. He didn't just chase criminals. He hunted them, alone, outgunned, and completely unfazed. But Eastwood's toughness didn't stop at acting. As a director, he became known for shooting quickly, efficiently, and without drama. No drawn-out arguments, no pampered delays. He'd often shoot a scene once, say, "That's it," and move on. His work ethic was relentless, and the respect he earned on set was legendary. He didn't need to demand respect. He commanded it by example. Even into his 80s, Eastwood kept making movies where he played gritty, hard-edged characters like Gran Torino's Walt Kowalski or The Mule. Age didn't soften him. It made him even more intimidating. There's something about a man who's been around long enough to bury every threat he's ever faced, who keeps getting up and saying, "I'm not done yet." Chuck Norris naming Eastwood among the toughest actors ever isn't a courtesy. It's a fact. Eastwood isn't just tough in the way he moves or talks. He's tough in his refusal to slow down, his defiance of Hollywood's norms, and the way he's carved out a path no one else could walk. When you think of toughness, you don't think of noise. You think of Clint Eastwood, standing the dust, eyes narrowed, daring the world to make the first move. Charles Bronson didn't need to yell, flex, or show off to prove how tough he was. He just stood there, with a face carved out of granite and a stare that could freeze time. Bronson became the embodiment of quiet menace. While other actors played heroes, Bronson played men, flawed, vengeful, dangerous men who didn't negotiate. They acted, and more often than not, they acted with brutal, unflinching force. Bronson's path to stardom was anything but glamorous. Born into extreme poverty as the 11th of 15 children to Lithuanian immigrants, He grew up in a Pennsylvania coal mining town. By the age of 10, he was wearing his older siblings' hand-me-downs and speaking barely any English. And when he was a teenager, he followed his father into the mines. That's right, coal mining. While most actors were dreaming of stardom, Bronson was underground, choking on coal dust and earning pennies just to survive. It didn't build character. It built something harder. When World War II broke out, Bronson didn't hesitate. He joined the U.S. Army Air Forces and served as a tail gunner in a B-29 bomber. He flew over 25 missions in the Pacific and earned a Purple Heart. Imagine that. Before he ever picked up a fake gun on screen, he was firing real ones, facing real death. That experience never left him, and it showed in every glare, every line of dialogue, and every cold-blooded stare he delivered on screen. In Hollywood, Bronson was an anomaly. He wasn't pretty, and he didn't try to be. He didn't do talk shows, rarely gave interviews, and avoided the spotlight like it was a trap. Yet despite his quiet persona, directors fought to work with him. Why? Because Bronson had something money couldn't buy: credibility. When he stepped on screen, you believed him. No CGI, no stunt doubles pretending to be him. Bronson was the real deal. His breakout role came in The Magnificent Seven, but it was a Death Wish series that turned him into a pop culture icon. As Paul Kersey, the average man turned street vigilante, Bronson didn't just portray violence. He made you believe it was justified. You saw the switch flip, and you knew someone was going to pay. The way he delivered justice, cold, methodical, and without hesitation, tapped into something primal in the audience. He didn't talk about revenge. He executed it. Off screen, Bronson was just as no-nonsense. He hated pretense, kept a small circle, and lived far away from the glitz of L.A. Even when he was the world's highest-paid actor in the 1970s, he never bought into fame. He once said, "I'm not a Casanova. I'm not Hollywood. I'm a working man." And that's exactly what made him terrifyingly real. He didn't act tough. He was tough. When Chuck Norris includes Charles Bronson in his list, it's not a favor, it's recognition. Bronson represented a different breed of actor, one forged in hardship, tested by war, and sharpened by survival. He wasn't loud. He didn't boast. But when Charles Bronson showed up, you felt it, because the storm never announces itself before it hits. You don't survive San Quentin and end up as a beloved action icon by being lucky. You survive it by being tougher than everyone else in the room. That's Danny Trejo's story. The tattoos, the scars, the dead serious stare, they aren't movie props. They're his history, carved into his body and his reputation long before Hollywood came calling. Trejo's past is the stuff of gritty, unbelievable legend. Born in L.A., raised in the roughest parts of the city, he was introduced to drugs before he was a teenager and was committing armed robberies not long after. By his early 20s, he was in and out of some of California's toughest prisons: Folsom, Soledad, and San Quentin, places where respect isn't given, it's taken, often by force. And Trejo, he didn't just survive, he thrived. In prison, he became a champion boxer, lightweight and welterweight, and earned a name as someone you didn't want to cross. But here's what makes Trejo truly different. He changed. After hitting rock bottom, he turned his life around through rehab and recovery, eventually becoming a drug counselor. And it was through that work, helping others escape the life he barely survived, that he stumbled into acting. One day, while visiting a film set to support a young addict, someone recognized him from his boxing days. Before he knew it, he was cast in a prison fight scene. And just like that, Danny Trejo was reborn. From there, he became a staple in action films, playing the hardened criminal, the vengeful badass, or the stone-faced enforcer. Roles like Navajas in Desperado, Johnny, 23 in Con Air, and of course, the machete-wielding icon Machete weren't characters. They were extensions of Trejo's real-life persona. He didn't have to pretend. When he delivered a threat on screen, it was believable because it came from a place of truth. But what really cements Trejo's place among Hollywood's toughest isn't just the past. It's the way he's carried that toughness into a new kind of power. He's not just an actor. He's a businessman, a philanthropist, and a community leader. He owns multiple businesses, including Trejo's Tacos and Trejo's Coffee and Donuts in Los Angeles. And he's still constantly working, appearing in dozens of films a year, giving motivational speeches, and mentoring at-risk youth. The man is everywhere, and he's not slowing down. Chuck Norris naming Danny Trejo on his list wasn't just about movies. It was about life. Trejo's toughness wasn't made in a gym or choreographed in a fight scene. It was forged in prison yards, in battles with addiction, and in the streets of East L.A. And now, with decades of film under his belt and a reputation as both a warrior and a giver, Trejo has proven that true toughness isn't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you come back after being knocked down. When Chuck Norris names you alongside legends like Clint Eastwood and Charles Bronson, you're not just another Hollywood actor. You're a problem. And that's exactly what Tom Hardy is. A controlled, coiled-up, unpredictable force that feels like it could snap at any second. Whether he's playing a bare-knuckle fighter, a war-scarred pilot, or a masked anarchist, Hardy doesn't just show up. He consumes the screen. But here's the twist. Hardy didn't come out of the gate polished or promising. In fact, by his early 20s, his life was spiraling fast. He struggled with addiction, alcohol, substances, self-destruction, and nearly lost everything before he even had a real shot. He once said, "I was a lunatic. I was out of control." But he clawed his way out. Rehab, raw honesty, and a work ethic fueled by pain and hunger turned him from a cautionary tale into a beast. That kind of redemption story, it's not scripted. It's earned. Hardy doesn't act tough. He is tough. Trained in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, boxing, and MMA, he doesn't just pick up fighting skills for roles. He lives them. In 2022, Hardy secretly entered a jiu-jitsu tournament in the UK and won. No PR stunt. No cameras. Just Hardy rolling on the mats with real fighters, choking people out and get his hand raised. The ref said afterward, he's genuinely skilled, not just for an actor, for anyone. His physical transformations are legendary. For Bronson, he packed on 40 pounds of pure muscle to portray Britain's most violent prisoner. He ate chicken and rice 8 times a day, trained like a madman, and studied the real Charles Bronson's mannerisms until he practically became the guy. Bronson himself later said Hardy was the only man on the planet fit to play me. That's not praise, that's certification. Then came Warrior, where Hardy played an ex-Marine turned cage fighter. Every punch, every grunt, every grimace in that movie felt like it was being pulled straight from a real fight. He trained 6 hours a day, beat up his own body, and didn't stop until he felt like he was really stepping into the ring. That wasn't acting. That was a man willing to go to war with himself just to get it right. And don't forget Bane, one of the most physically intimidating villains ever put on screen. Hardy not only bulked up to nearly 200 pounds of muscle, but brought a terrifying presence that didn't require CGI or gore. He stood there and you felt the weight of every word, every breath behind that mask. Off-screen, Hardy keeps things private. He's not chasing fame. He's focused, often intense, and known for not tolerating Hollywood nonsense. Directors say working with him is like handling a lit fuse, because when Hardy's on, no one can touch him. Chuck Norris didn't include Hardy for his box office numbers. He included him because Hardy is cut from the same cloth as the old-school legends. Scarred, skilled, and completely unafraid, Tom Hardy isn't a character. He's a threat. And that's exactly what makes him one of the toughest in Hollywood history. Long before the Marvel Cinematic Universe turned comic book movies into billion-dollar franchises, Wesley Snipes was slicing through vampires and villains as Blade, a leather-clad hybrid who didn't just hunt the undead, but owned the screen with every line, every glare, every fight. And make no mistake, the power Snipes brought to that role didn't come from special effects. It came from him. His training, his discipline, his mindset. Wesley Snipes didn't pretend to be deadly. He was born in Florida and raised in the South Bronx. Snipes grew up in the kind of environment that demanded grit just to get through the day. But unlike many actors who find toughness later in life, Snipes was forged in discipline early. He began training in martial arts at the age of 12 and eventually earned black belts in Shotokan karate and Hapkido, along with serious proficiency in capoeira, kung fu, and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. The man is a walking arsenal. And when you watch him fight on screen, it shows fluid, fast, and dangerous like a coiled weapon. His breakout roles in films like New Jack City, Passenger 57, and Demolition Man weren't just action flicks. They were showcases for Snipes' unique energy. He could play smart, calculated criminals or cold-blooded heroes without missing a beat. He brought elegance to violence, precision to chaos. In Blade, every sword strike and roundhouse kick looked like second nature, because for him, it was. But behind the scenes, Snipes' reputation was just as fierce. He was known for being intensely focused, brutally honest, and absolutely unwilling to fake anything. He clashed with directors who didn't respect the craft or tried to water down the edge he brought to roles. Some called him difficult, but others saw it for what it was: principle. He didn't show up to play the game. He showed up to dominate it. And let's not ignore the elephant in the room. Wesley Snipes was one of the few black action stars in the 90s who wasn't reduced to psychic roles or stereotypes. He kicked the door down, literally, and forced Hollywood to take him seriously as a leading man. He didn't wait for permission. He made himself impossible to ignore. Of course, Snipes also faced real-world heat, most famously with legal troubles related to taxes that led to time behind bars. But even there, his reputation held strong. In interviews afterward, he didn't dodge the situation. He owned it. And when he came back sharper, wiser, and still absolutely lethal on screen. Just watch him in Expendables 3. After nearly a decade out of the spotlight, he's still outshone most of the cast with one intense stare and a few precise moves. Chuck Norris putting Snipes on his list isn't just a nod to his movie fights. It's respect. Because Wesley Snipes isn't tough in a Hollywood sense. He's tough in a you don't want to step to this way. Disciplined, fearless, and never dialing it in, Snipes proved that sometimes the deadliest blade in the room doesn't need sharpening. It just needs a reason. When Chuck Norris names the toughest actors in Hollywood, and Michael Jai White makes the cut, it's not a casual mention. It's a warning. Because while some actors look dangerous, and others act dangerous, Michael Jai White is dangerous. And not just in character. He's the kind of guy who could knock out most of his co-stars before the director even yells action. Let's start with the facts. Michael Jai White isn't just a martial artist. He's one of the most skilled to ever work in the film industry. He holds black belts in 8 different styles, including Shotokan, Taekwondo, Goju-Ryu, Kabuto, Kyokushin, Tang Soo Do, Wushu, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's not some Hollywood stunt resume. That's real discipline, earned rank. When he throws a punch on screen, there's no acting. There's precision. There's history. There's power. And it's not just technical mastery. White moves like someone who can end a fight in seconds. He's fast, fluid, and explosive. Watch any of his fight scenes, from Blood and Bone to Undisputed 2, and you'll notice something rare. His opponents are actually trying to keep up. That's because White doesn't pull energy from choreography. He brings real-world combat energy into every move. And when you combine that with his commanding presence and deep, intimidating voice, you get a screen presence that's impossible to ignore. But here's the catch. Hollywood has ignored him. Despite his obvious skills and charisma, White's never gotten the full spotlight that some of his peers received. Why? That's the question fans keep asking. Maybe it's because he doesn't fit the mold. He's not flashy. He's not interested in fame for fame's sake. He's focused on craft, discipline, and staying true to himself. And ironically, that kind of dedication, the kind Chuck Norris recognizes, is what makes him so dangerous. What sets White apart isn't just his fighting ability. It's the philosophy behind it. He speaks often about self-control, mental focus, and the responsibility that comes with power. You never hear drama about him off-screen. No scandals. No outbursts. He's calm, grounded, focused. Like a true martial artist, he believes in fighting only when necessary. And when he does fight, it's decisive. One of his most iconic performances, Blood and Bone, became a cult classic not because of Hollywood hype, but because fans saw something real. The fights in that movie weren't just brutal, they were art. Every strike had intent. Every move had weight. That's the Michael Jai White effect. He brings reality into a fantasy world, and it hits harder than CGI ever could. Chuck Norris, including him on this list, isn't about celebrity status. It's about respect. Real fighters recognize other real fighters. and White has earned his place in that rare tier. In a world of stunt doubles, fake muscles, and actors who train for 3 weeks and call themselves tough, Michael Jai White is the realest one in the room. So what does it really mean to be one of the toughest actors in Hollywood? It's not just about muscles or fight scenes. It's not about playing a badass on screen. It's about who you are when the cameras stop rolling. It's about surviving what most people couldn't, on the streets, in the ring, behind bars, or inside your own mind. Every name on this list earned their place not just because they were dangerous in character, but because they carried something real behind performance. Discipline, grit, scars, and a refusal to quit. Chuck Norris didn't just name actors. He named warriors, survivors, people who went through hell and didn't just come back. They brought the fire with them. From Clint Eastwood's silent intensity to Michael Jai White's surgical precision, from Charles Bronson's raw menace to Tom Hardy's controlled chaos, every one of these men represents a different kind of toughness. Mental, physical, emotional, and in a town full of illusions, that kind of truth is rare and unforgettable. But here's the real question. Who's next? Who will rise through the noise, the flash, the hype, and prove they've got the real steel it takes to stand among these legends? Drop your answer in the comments. Who would you add to Chuck Norris's list of Hollywood's toughest? And if you think toughness is about more than action scenes, you're not alone. Because in the end, true strength isn't just about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can live and still keep standing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.